is Melissa Galbalt, and I work for WUSC as the Planning, Performance, and Learning Specialist. Thanks for joining me today to talk about engaging Canadian audiences in Canada's global development efforts. This video is almost 30 minutes long, and it will provide you with an overview of how you and your local committee can measure and assess the level of audience engagement with your activities, and further, how this measurement can help inform and assess the impact of public engagement more broadly across Canada. So over the next 30 minutes, we'll try to build on your understanding of how to measure or quantify change among your public engagement activity audiences. And you'll also learn about how to do this. You'll learn about data collection tools that we've created to support you to do audience surveys. So let's start by digging into exactly what we mean by quantifying change, and talk about the value of gaining insight into the changes that your activity participants and audiences will experience through your activities. All funding for Canada's global development initiatives rely on the support and engagement of Canadians. Funding for Canada's global development efforts is all taxpayer dollars, so engaging the diverse and widespread support of Canadians is essential to its existence. Inclusive engagement of the public in Canada and in all the countries where we work is a key factor for sustaining global development efforts in order to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. At WUSC, we focus on public engagement activities because of their great potential to engage new audiences and also to mobilize new and existing members of the public from awareness all the way to sustained engagement. The ultimate goal of public engagement is to enhance Canadians' understanding of global development issues, to inspire thoughtful global leadership, and to motivate those global citizens to take informed action. Actions can take many forms, but are all targeted outreach activities aligned to WUSC's strategic goals to improve the social and economic well-being of the world's most vulnerable. Public engagement initiatives also offer participants the opportunity to engage their own networks and to do the same and advocate for the causes that we support. Local committees like yours are key to WUSC's engagement of broader Canadian audiences, particularly because they engage young people, but also because of the capacity of local committees to reach diverse Canadian audiences from across the country, both on and off campus. So let's take a quick look at some of the types of public engagement activities that local committees like yours have been engaged in. As we review these activities, I want you to think about the audiences or the participants in these activities. Think about the activities that your local committees have hosted already previously, or that you're planning to host this year. Here's a couple of event ideas that you can host online or in person. You can host webinars or panel discussions on the themes from the 3 WUSC campaigns. If it's online and you can't meet in person, or you'd rather host a virtual event, you could do a Facebook Live or a Zoom. You could be hosting fundraising events, such as fundraising activities for Ride for Refuge. Another idea that a lot of committees have done is a candlelight yoga. Other ideas could include movie nights, cultural and artistic gatherings, Halloween trick-or-treat events. If you have questions on how to go about planning such events, or you're looking for ideas, feel free to contact Senabu or reach out to other local committees through Facebook collaboration pages. There's lots of ideas out there. So thinking about these activities and the audiences that you're reaching, what kinds of changes do you think audience members and your participants experience during these activities? Do you think they experience increases in knowledge, changes in attitudes, increases in their willingness to take action? Let's talk about what some of these changes are and why it's important to consider these changes when you're planning your events, and in particular, why it's important to make efforts to measure these changes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the public engagement glossary that we've put together for you that accompanies this asynchronous session. If not, feel free to pause and come back to this video after you've had a chance to review it. Some of the key terms we've identified in the glossary will be really useful for you to understand before we continue. Through all of your public engagement activities on and off campus, you inspire changes in the audience members and participants of your activities. Depending on factors like the type of the activity and the length of the activity, those changes can include things like improvements in awareness, a willingness to do something differently, an increase in skills, a change in attitude, changes in opinions, motivations, aspirations, among many other different types of changes. In results-based management, we call these changes outcomes, and they are direct and often immediate results that can actually be observed and measured after an activity. These changes can be small, but are often meaningful and sometimes snowball into a bigger change for an audience member or a participant down the road. For example, a change in attitude might motivate them to take an action. For example, perhaps even a sustainable action like joining your local committee, deciding to do more research about refugee issues, or possibly even signing up for a volunteer placement. To put that in a more relatable way, let's say that you attend a workshop on time management. You learn new skills to manage your time, and maybe also become motivated to do something different in your life to better manage your time. The workshop facilitator can measure that change using a survey at the end of the workshop. Note here that we aren't measuring whether you actually go and make those changes in your life. We're just measuring that incremental micro change of a knowledge increase and a willingness to make a change in your behavior. If we were to measure the actual change as it takes place, so for example, going out and buying an agenda or doing something like that for time management, we would actually have to set up a tracer type survey where the facilitator would go and check on you many months later to see if you had actually made any of those behavior changes. On a larger scale, think of the interventions your university and college or SAGEP does to measure your changes or the changes you experience as you go through their courses. They monitor the incremental changes, for example, grading your work, taking surveys on course content and instructors, and then years after you graduate, they do tracer studies to see if you got jobs in your field of study, survey your income, etc. So it's clear that we can identify these changes and that we can measure these changes. But I want us to pause here for a second to talk about why we should measure these changes. So first, let's think about how measuring changes in your audience levels of knowledge, awareness, and changes in attitudes will actually help your local committee to improve its activities. Improved understanding of your audience and which type of activities they enjoy the most is key to keeping them coming back to support your work. Understanding their perspectives and how they may feel differently after the activity might also encourage more people to stay involved and possibly stay involved by joining your committee. An audience assessment or a survey can help your local committee to understand if the activity was successful in meeting its objectives. So when you measure the reach, the outcomes, and the impact of your public engagement events and activities, you can learn how you can do things differently and improve the services that you provide to your members and to your audiences. When you share these results with WUSC, we are able to aggregate the results from institutions like yours from across Canada. This helps us to learn who is engaging through local committees on a national scale and what types of activities they learn from and are interested in. This in turn can help WUSC to direct its own public engagement efforts and can also help our staff to understand where you and your local committee may need more support. For example, supplies, campaigns, coaching, and training. By assessing the impact of all campuses, it can also help us to understand how we might broaden our reach together, making more of a nationwide impact. Collecting audience perspectives and data on changes that audience members might experience can also help to gauge the level of support that Canadians have for Canada's global development efforts. which in fact is one of only a few ways that we can influence the continuation of support for Canada's global development efforts. So this is very important for anyone who wants to see Canada's global development efforts continue, like you. Engaging the Canadian public, which is the important work that you're already doing, and the measurement of the impact of these public engagement activities is critical in getting support from Canadians to continue to do the work that we're doing in lower income countries for marginalized youth and refugees. So if you are able to measure the impact of some of your activities, WUSC combine the data from campuses that are collecting with this data, the same data collected by our volunteers at their public engagement activities, and we report this data to Global Affairs Canada each year. Global Affairs Canada will then combine this data with the data that they collect from all other NGOs like WUSC, and we'll be able to get a much clearer picture of the impact that public engagement activities have on Canadian audiences, which helps them to see the impact of the dollars that Canada invests in public engagement, and also helps them to gauge the level of support for global development efforts across Canada. So it helps them answer a really important question then. Are these efforts resulting in a more engaged Canadian public? Are there more Canadians that are willing to take action? It also helps us to answer the question of, do Canadians support public spending on global development issues such as refugee education, gender equality, and youth economic opportunities? The answer to these questions is critical to the sustainability of Canada's contributions to the SDGs, and therefore the impact we can have on the lives of marginalized youth and refugees around the world. And yet another reason that you may want to engage in measuring the impact that your local committee is having is to get valuable practice and experience in performance measurement. So take it from me, if you're engaging in a career in global development, or that's in your future, you cannot escape performance management. Gathering data on how effective our activities are, and also data on the changes that our participants and audience members experience, is really essential to having an informed and evidence-based program. And to be able to adapt programming to stay relevant to the needs of the communities that we serve. So it's really important. So by learning and engaging in performance measurement, by doing audience surveys with the audiences of your activities, you'll be gaining valuable experience that might be useful for you in your future career prospects. Just getting over the hump of understanding the importance of measurement will actually put you further ahead of your peers. And by doing this, by actually implementing the surveys, you'll also be getting experience, firsthand experience in doing it and implementing it.